Do you know what Malachi's favorite SUV is? Naturally, it's a Mitsubishi Outlander! Yeah, I know, bad joke. I'm sorry, I just couldn't think of any better way to start this video off. What is going on, everybody? I am officially bringing back the retrograde. It was something that I tested out on a video probably about 2 years ago now, and I really wasn't satisfied with the way I did it back then or the way the video ultimately turned out, but I've tweaked a few things and I'm committed to it now, and yeah. But what is the retrograde? Well, it's quite simple. We go through a movie, and then once it's done, I then break the movie down into 4 main categories: plot, characters, direction, and music. And based on a complex algorithm which is made up of nothing but squarely my own opinion, I then assign a letter grade to each category. And after we assign a letter grade, I then take the average of all those combined and come up with an overall grade for the movie itself. But if I feel like a film is worthy of it, I will assign bonus points at the very end, which could ultimately affect the overall score. So, without further ado, let's get right into the first movie of the retrograde, which is 1984's Children of the Corn. The film opens up on a typical Sunday morning in the small town of Gatlin, Nebraska, where we are introduced to one of our 4 main characters, Job. And everything seems rather calm and unassuming, but then the shit starts to get real, as the kids in the town, led by Isaac, start systematically killing all the adults. But during the whole murder spree, we see Job's sister Sarah back home in a fever dream type state, drawing the events of what is happening. Which this little psychic ability of Sarah's is important to remember, as it plays a role later on in the film. But after the slaughter is over, we are treated to a montage of Sarah's work over the credits, giving us glimpses of what has transpired in the 3 years between the opening and the rest of the film, which I think is a pretty cool and unique way to drop exposition without having to shoehorn it all into a scene later on. Now after the credits, we are introduced to our other 2 main characters, Bert and Vicky, who are driving across country to Seattle, and whose relationship doesn't really seem to be on the best of terms. But as time goes on, it's easy to forget about their little relationship spats here because it really has no effect on the story, so it kind of just gets swept under the rug. Meanwhile, back in Gatlin, a child clone of Paul Rudd named Joseph has more or less said "F this shit, I'm out," and decides to make a run for it, leaving Sarah and Job behind. But no one likes a quitter, especially Malachi, who hunts down and kills Joseph as he attempts to flee through the cornfield.
I spy, my little eye, something that begins with the letter C.
How about a child?
Look out!
Yes, while getting distracted over a map, Bert runs down Joseph, who stumbled out onto the highway. However, upon examination, Bert discovers that the boy's throat had been cut, so he was more or less dead when they hit him. Yeah, good thing too is that one was going to be pretty hard to explain. But Bert obviously suspects foul play, and after discovering Joseph's belongings in the cornfield, he loads both the suitcase and the boy's body in the car and then drives off to find help. Now I gotta admit, even for the pre-cell phone days of the 1980s, this decision to load him up in the trunk of the car is a pretty sketchy one, but at the same time, what else is he really supposed to do? Meanwhile, Sarah and Job are off having unsanctioned fun in one of the old abandoned houses, where I guess the concern over their friend Joseph has officially worn off.
Boy, I sure hope Joseph is okay.
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure he's just fine. But Malachi puts an end to their jovial shenanigans and takes them to Isaac to be punished. Isaac sees that Sarah has forecasted the arrival of Bert and Vicky with one of her drawings, so he instructs Malachi that he may want to go make sure that the old man at the gas station doesn't start running his mouth. When asked about Sarah and Job, Isaac pretty much lets them off on a technicality, which frustrates Malachi, but Isaac asserts that he is acting under the will of he who walks behind the rose. Now, I failed to mention this earlier, but in case you are new to this movie or the franchise, and you have no clue who the hell he who walks behind the rose is. It's the name that they give to the deity thing that they worship or whatever the hell it is, and it's never really made clear as to what it is, but I do think it's pretty safe to assume that it's pretty much just the devil. After failing to find any sort of clue that can help them in Joseph's suitcase, Bert and Vicky decide to stop and ask for help from the old man at the gas station, who just seems all too eager to lend a hand.
I ain't got no gas. I ain't got no diesel fuel neither. You don't buy no gas, you can't use no restroom. Telephone, I ain't got no telephone.
But after feeling a tinge of remorse, he does persuade the two to head to the next town and to avoid going to Gatlin at all costs. And as the couple leave, the old man thinks that he's in the clear, but Malachi and a few of his friends have showed up just to make sure that he stays quiet. Permanently. I did always feel bad for the old man here, even if he was sort of a willing accomplice to everything that was going on in Gatlin at the time. But it also shows the ruthlessness of Malachi and how much of a loose cannon he is. Meanwhile, Vicky and Bert's attempts to traverse through the area leads them to driving in circles, as Satan seems to be playing the old switcheroo game with the road signs. But it is a really tense moment though, as they find themselves slowly being engulfed and swallowed up by a literal maze of maze, with seemingly no way out. But they do eventually break the loop, only to find themselves right back where they started. But this time, Bert says F it and opts to go to Gatlin instead.
Don't ever show up in my emergency room, buddy.
At the very same time, however, Isaac is giving a motivational sermon to his acolytes, in which he expounds on the death of Joseph, but also warns on the arrival of Bert and Vicky, and that they are to be kidnapped and offered up as a sacrifice to he who walks behind the rose. Bert and Vicky finally arrive in Gatlin, which is essentially a ghost town at this point. They do a bit of snooping, and they eventually stumble upon Sarah playing records in one of the old houses. But after failing to get any information out of Sarah, Bert gets frustrated and decides to head back into town to do some more digging, leaving Vicky alone. And there is absolutely no way that decision won't come back to bite him in the ass. So while Bert is off playing detective, Malachi and the rest of the Gatlin kids decide to drop in on Vicky for a surprise visit. Hey Vicky, we're having a party out in a cornfield and you're invited, woo! Bert, who finally gets a clue that shit ain't right in Gatlin, heads back to the house to find his girlfriend gone and little Sarah scared shitless. She shows him the drawing she made of Vicky being taken into the cornfield, so Bert rushes outside to look. And when doing so, the corn parts for him like the Red Sea, and being the dumbass that he is, he just strolls on in. But thankfully, this bad decision is a short-lived one, as he hears church bells ringing, so he bolts for town. Meanwhile, back in the cornfield, Isaac chastises Malachi over his reckless behavior, especially the killing of the old man. But when Malachi attempts to justify his actions, Isaac tells him to stop f***ing around and fall in line, as Vicky is being prepped for sacrifice. Just another typical day in Nebraska. Now back in town, Bert stumbles across and interrupts a blood ritual at the town church.
What are you, crazy? What do you think you're doing?
My passage. It's my birthday.
You got a pretty sick way of celebrating it, pal.
Amos then tells Bert that every child on their 19th birthday offers themselves up as a sacrifice to he who walks behind the rose. But when distracted at the announcement that Malachi was on his way, Bert is stabbed by the priestess. But their attempt at overpowering him is short-lived, as Bert makes like Usain Bolt and gets the f*** out of Dodge. He eventually takes refuge in an old shop, but is not entirely out of the woods as he's being stalked by Malachi, who, for all his badassery, gets laid out pretty damn quick. And trust me, this ain't the last time he goes down like a bitch. Bert, now running out of places to hide, runs into Job, who leads him to a secret bomb shelter where he and Sarah live. And it's where he also catches Bert up to speed with everything that has been going on. Meanwhile, Isaac and Malachi start having a lover's quarrel over their ideology, and Malachi has finally had enough of Isaac's shit. Malachi assumes power and instructs the kids to cut Vicky down and put Isaac in her place. Yeah, and I really can't blame Malachi for doing this either, because if I had to listen to that screechy voice for 3 years, I probably would have done the same damn thing. As night begins to fall, Job takes Bert to an old barn loft where he shows him the clearing in the cornfield where Vicky is being held captive. Sometime later, Bert sneaks up on the sacrifice ritual where Amos walks off into the corn and gets killed off screen, and a panicky Isaac is getting consumed by horrible 80s special effects. And after Isaac gets shot into the air like a bottle rocket, Bert gets the drop on the ceremony, and the kids stand around and watch as Bert just straight up smacks the shit out of Malachi like he owed him money.
I'm going slap, Pappy! Slappity slapping you, teaching you a lesson!
After making Malachi his bitch, Bert tells the kids that they've been fed nothing but lies and chastises them for being the gullible dumbasses that they are, before punking out Malachi one last time. Malachi! Guess who's back? Back again. An extra crispy and possessed Isaac, fresh from the deep fryer, tells Malachi that the devil wants him too for his treachery, and he snaps his neck and kills him. And that's it for those two. They're never seen in this movie again, so bye. Thanks for coming. But that's when shit really starts going south, as it looks as though the cornfield is actually coming alive to devour the kids and everyone else. That's when Job clues in Bert that the former town sheriff at one point tried to burn the field, but was ultimately cut down before he could succeed. Bert then grabs a Molotov and starts dragging the gas hose from the distillery out to the cornfield to connect to the sprinklers. But on his way out, he stumbles and falls and is suddenly being attacked by the corn itself. But before he can be devoured, Job rescues him by cutting him free from the stalk's grasp, and Bert eventually connects the gas hose to the sprinklers, which starts soaking the cornfield in gasoline. But time is running out as the main event is about to begin, and he who walks behind the rows is making his way down that center aisle. And after one failed attempt to firebomb the fields, which sees Job nearly kill himself in order to retrieve the unbroken bottle, Bert Hail Marys the shit out of that Molotov with no time left on the clock and sets that bitch up in flames, seemingly bringing an end to Gatlin's nightmare. But there was like 1,000 shitty sequels after this one, so we know that that didn't happen. On their way out of town after surviving the literal hell that they went through, the quartet all share some laughs about their potential future together as Bert goes into his now ruined car to look for a map. Oh shit! But the priestess from earlier, who had apparently been hiding this entire time, was dying to show Bert her best Michael Myers impression. But Vicky knows that the film's 93-minute runtime is almost over, so she quickly knocks her the F out. And with that, the gang all walk away happily ever after to live in Seattle, as Joseph's body, still in the trunk of Bert's car, rots away next to the spare tire and the golf clubs. And that, kids, was Children of the Corn from 1984. How did it fare on the grading scale? Let's find out. The plot gets a solid B-. It's nothing fancy and it's pretty straightforward and simple, and for a horror movie like this, it works. Where I think it kind of falls apart, however, is towards the end where, due to budgetary and special effects constraints, they really couldn't execute the original vision for the finale, so it kind of becomes a mess. But before that, the movie is really moody and creepy, and all around pretty good. The characters all get an A-. There really isn't much to address negatively about any of the main characters. They're all great, but some of the tertiary children seem a little lost at times, acting-wise, but what else do you expect from basically extras? But let's be honest, the real stars of this movie are Courtney Gaines as Malachi and John Franklin as Isaac. They carry and steal every scene they are in, and to this day, that shot of Isaac through the window at the very beginning just gives me chills. It's amazing for as young as they both were, especially Courtney Gaines, who just turned 18 at the time that they filmed this movie, that they were able to pull off such intimidating and memorable performances. It just speaks volumes to both of them as actors. I think the direction was neither fair nor foul, so it gets a middle of the road C. There isn't anything really that stands out, good or bad, and as one would say, this was very workmanlike in its direction. Nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. But the music. Holy shit, the music gets an absolute A+, as this might possibly be one of the most underrated and underappreciated scores in horror history. The title theme that Jonathan Elias crafted is creepy, haunting, and hypnotizing. You hear it once, and I dare you not to have it stuck in your head for the rest of the day. But even beyond the title theme, the rest of the score is just superb, and it's something that I hope one day gets a glorious re-release on vinyl so I can add it to my personal collection. So with those 4 grades averaged out, that brings the cumulative total right up to an 86%, which gives Children of the Corn an overall grade of a B, which I do feel is an honest grade because the movie isn't anything great or spectacular, but it is pretty solid and decent, and there's a reason why its legacy has endured this long, and for better or for really worse, it had spawned a franchise. And as you can see here, I actually own the Arrow release of this movie, and yeah, it's one of my favorites. Like I said, I know the movie isn't anything like amazingly, mind-blowingly great, but I have always enjoyed this movie since I was really little, and this edition of this movie is actually really, really awesome. I mean, just check out the box art there. It's just really, really cool. And plus, I don't know if you could see it because it's usually off frame, on my vest here, I actually have a pin for Children of the Corn. And also, if you've been paying attention, you could see that there's a little poster for it right back there. But that's all I got for you in this video. What are your thoughts of Children of the Corn? Do you guys like it? Do you guys hate it? Do you think I graded it fairly? Or do you think it needs to be higher? Do you think it needs to be lower? Post your grades and your thoughts in the comments below. And like usual, let's discuss. And also, if you haven't yet joined the Dead Jester Cinema Super Secret Clubhouse over on Facebook, please go and do so, and we can talk about movies like Halloween and Children of the Corn and whatever other happy-ass bullshit we want to discuss. We can do it over there. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Adios, and GTFO! Do you know what Malachi's favorite kind of SUV is? Naturally, it's a Mitsubishi. Do you know what kind of... Do you know what... I can't believe I'm f***ing this up. Shit. This garage is hot enough. You have no idea how hot it is with these lights on right now. And I failed to mention this earlier, but he who walks behind... made clear as to who or what it is, but I think it's... Now, I failed to mention this earlier, but in case you are new to this franchise at all, or this movie, and you're